In the Excalibur series, Rachel Summers is falling, cast out, fleeing from heaven, hell, never sure which one. It's all the same to her. Sometimes she's screaming for joy, and sometimes she's crying in terror. As transcendence gives way to reality, Rachel falls into what appears to be a circus. Rachel gets vilified for crashing their party, but she tells the man at the center she has nothing to do with their party. She's just trying to leave. But Rachel can't leave, as once again she's bound in chains. But as Rachel struggles, a group of werewolves suddenly teleport inside. Now the people retreat as the werewolves set their attention on Rachel. Rachel tries to retaliate, but the werewolves appear to be immune to her abilities. But just because they're immune to her telekinesis doesn't mean she can't use every object around her to combat the werewolves. Rachel gets slashed in the back by one of the werewolves, and this pisses her off, so she uses the chains that binds her to grab the wolf and toss him through the wall. To her surprise, this opens up a hole to the outside world, and as Rachel exits, she wonders where is she? But as all the werewolves are on that ass, Rachel retreats through the subways of London. Rachel boards a train and takes off with the werewolves in hot pursuit. But as one of the wolves grabs the back of the train and rips his way inside, Rachel unleashes her phoenix form to blow the thing onto the tracks and electrocute it. Now, as the train continues down the tracks, Rachel can hear the thoughts of all the civilians vilifying her for what she just did. But elsewhere, as the werewolves are howling for their fallen comrade, Gatecrasher is alerted to the presence of Rachel Summers. Meanwhile, back at a certain lighthouse, as Captain Britain is pissed drunk, somebody grabs him and throws his ass into the ocean in a attempt to sober him up. Now, Captain Britain bursts out of the water and flies inside the lighthouse only to find Nightcrawler in the kitchen making tea. Now, Nightcrawler tells Captain Britain he needs his help combating the TechNet, but Captain Britain is acting like a little bitch, wallowing in his own despair. So Nightcrawler pins Captain Britain up against the wall and tells him what's wrong with him. But Captain Britain seems to be tired of the cycle of save his loved ones just to watch them sacrifice themselves later. But Nightcrawler tells Captain Britain he's not a hero, he's simply a man trying to live life the best way he knows. Nightcrawler basically tells Captain Britain if this is more than he can handle, then he'll go it alone. Captain Britain tells Nightcrawler to wait, but it's too late, as Nightcrawler is already gone, leaving Captain Britain wallowing in his own despair once again. But elsewhere on the streets of London, Rachel Summers walks the street as she contemplates her time with the X-Men. But Rachel would be hit with a neurotoxin that instantaneously inhibits the synapses. Rachel's body is reduced to a sack of meal as she's swallowed whole by Body Bag. Now, Body Bag has reached his limit, having swallowed Kitty Pryde, Rachel Summers, and Megan. But Gatecrasher tells him the only one they need is Rachel Summers, so he can spit out the other two. But next thing Gatecrasher and the TechNet knows, they get third partied by a fuck ton of werewolves. Gatecrasher tells the werewolves they're interfering with duly authorized representatives as they're on a mission from Saturn 9. Nevertheless, Gatecrasher and the TechNet proceed to go at it with the werewolves. Nightcrawler would appear from above, watching the chaos. But as Nightcrawler swoops down and smashes Body Bag's head into the ground, one of the werewolves tries to slash Nightcrawler, but he dodges, forcing the werewolves to set Kitty, Megan, and Rachel free. Now, Kitty and Megan are still out, but as Rachel regains consciousness, Nightcrawler tells Phoenix he could use some help as Nightcrawler is going at it with one of the werewolves. But Nightcrawler ends up getting pinned to the ground by Gatecrasher. But before she could do him in, Nightcrawler gets some much needed backup in the form of Captain Britain. But as Captain Britain has his back turned, Thug uses one of the werewolves to smack Captain Britain through a window. Rachel tries to get up, but Ring Toss binds her in energy rings. And as Kitty tries to retaliate, it's no use as Joy Boy turns her into a fat girl. Now, as Megan finally comes to, she tries to mobilize to help her friends, but as Waxworks touches her, her body loses structure as if she had no bones. Captain Britain finally knocks out Thug, only to be third partied by Scatterbrain. And as Nightcrawler gets his ass knocked out of a window by one of the werewolves, let me just say, these guys are absolutely getting their asses whooped. But as Nightcrawler knocks the werewolf into ring toss, Rachel Summers finally frees herself and takes out Joy Boy to restore Kitty Pryde's original petite form. Nightcrawler then knocks China Doll into Gatecrasher, forcing China to shrink Gatecrasher. And as she's on the back foot, Kitty Pryde focuses her abilities to make sure she's solid and hits Gatecrasher with the hot one right in the mouth. Now the TechNet finally disappear, as well as the werewolves. As Rachel looks around at all the destruction they caused, Megan and Captain Britain share a kiss. Kitty, Nightcrawler, and Rachel embrace as they share a hug. But another night, atop the Scots Highlands, the group gather around a campfire as they reminisce on memories of the X-Men. But as the night goes on, Captain Britain and Megan decide it's getting late and it's time to call it a night. But before they go, Rachel asks what of the dream of Captain Xavier. Xavier once dreamed of a world where children and mutants can coexist together in peace, where people are judged for who they are and not what they look like when they're born. She talks about King Arthur and how him and his knights were agents of that dream. And when he died, the sword and the Knights of the Round Table became legends. The sword of Excalibur represented hope, and it was light in the darkness of fear and ignorance. Rachel Summers has run her whole life, but she's tired of running and she's ready for a higher purpose. She likes Professor Xavier's dream, and it's a dream worth fighting for. Megan says Rachel's life reminds her of hers, and she refuses to let anyone else endure such horror. Rachel Summers, Nightcrawler, Megan, Kitty Pryde, and Captain Britain form Excalibur. And so, with laughter, transcendence, and joy, the dream is reconstructed at the beginning, so to speak.